All right. Let me make sure it's live on Facebook now. I got to click the go live.
Michael, in case I got an unstable internet in my temporary studio tonight, it seems. So if I disappear, then, you and Michael will do just fine and I'll come back,
Yeah, I'm sure we can handle it.
Yeah, we'll be fine. We'll just kind of back and forth for a bit.
We're all former party animals, right, Michael?
Pretty much.
Oh yeah. Well, that party animal part of me, it's there, but it's
Okay,
it's been 22
live,
years since I've been to a good party.
Cool. We're good.
Okay, you're live now. That's okay.
Live,
we can talk. Yeah, I'll tell you. Everybody goes through it, right? Everybody goes through their alcoholism.
Use your own technique
anything
to bring you to a relaxed state of consciousness.
Definitely.
Meth. People are going through so much in this. This is the most amazing time to be alive. To watch how people are handling the stress that these governments are putting on us. I think, people need healing and they need to, experiment with other methods of healing because going to a hospital is not very healthy.
Not really.
Not these days. No, not especially
No, it is
in the last
not.
2 years, for sure.
Yeah. Welcome everybody to infowindnewnews.com. And today we have Mikael Luman on who has had really good success healing others and also has been healed himself and wants to tell about his story. And so we'll be talking about that. And he also runs a business that, is more like a healing business, I suppose. Just like a counselor or anything else. Counselors a lot of times, they don't want to make money either, but they do care about their patients. And so, but counselors charge money. That's the way it is.
It's funny. I've noticed that home health care seems to care more about the patient than hospital care.
That's, yeah. Well, I know I don't want to end up in a hospital.
Neither do I.
Not right now.
Pretty sure I'm
Not
almost
ever.
sick and tired of it at this point after having been at rate once doing those bloods.
So I believe in meditation. I believe in calming the spirit so that you can accept and feel the energy of the nucleus of the earth along with the gravity of the stars.
To use this meditation as a tool to co-create the trigger that will start the process of first contact with benevolent galactic beings and divine intervention.
These galactic beings, I'm not sure about. All right, Stephen, we're going to put you on if you're ready. And
I'm ready whenever you are.
Okay, that way I can save my internet here and I'll shut this.
Sounds like a plan. I know you're having issues there, Joe. Make sure to check out the Heatherly Warriors Facebook page, follow it, and support our Sunday night shows. www.facebook.com/Heatherly Warriors. That's HEATHERLY Warriors, WARRIORS / and also if you want to be a guest or if you want to become a podcaster, newsfeeder, or other technical help, please email us at info@woodwindmg.com. We mentor and produce, distribute, and publish podcasts. Support us through PayPal, Cash App, or by visiting the Heatherly Warriors Bonfire store. All the links are in the description. Freedom of speech is one of the most fundamental parts of a modern democratic society. Without the freedom of expression, we are basically slaves. Please join this informational and educational media outreach today.
That's awesome. With that, welcome Mikael Luman out of Portland, Oregon.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome, buddy. And we're going to be talking about, this is Stephen Phillips. He's my partner in InfoWind, and he has his own. We're kind of trying to figure out how we can merge news for us, newsforus.world. And that's a news and then a number 4 and us .world. You
.world.
can check it out. And he's
They're also in the description as well.
Yeah, very detailed fact checker. So I want to get that out there. If anybody wants to ever join our team of broadcasters, we're a little different. We're looking for people to join our network in order to expand reach, work hard, that kind of thing. So if you're interested in helping InfoWind, make sure you get a hold of us at infowindnewnews.com. And yeah, Michael, so, healing, why don't you just first give people an overview of, what happened to you that caused you to believe in this healing and how you're helping other people and why you're helping other people now. And when did that start? Let's get to that.
Yeah. Well, so I'll start in 2015, and then I'll kind of go back and lead up to that. But in 2015, I had just had a back surgery. I'd been in pain for about 2.5 years. I re-herniated the same disc 3 weeks later, only to find out that not only did I have the herniated disc in my back again, but I had torn labrums and bilateral impingements in both hips. The hip surgeon wanted me to do my back again and then take 6 months to a year to get into shape before he would do my hips. The pain that I'd been experiencing for the 2.5 years wasn't just my back. Like literally, it felt like I was getting kicked in the groin all day, every day, right? And that was probably coming from the hips. So in this moment of feeling as if I was out of options, and I was going through a divorce at the same time, right? So all this stuff. And in a moment of feeling as if I was out of options, I drove out of town, went to the Deschutes River. I wandered up or hiked up, not really hiking because I really couldn't. I mean, I wasn't even walking upright. My pain level was a 10. I just knew I needed to get away. I put all my pain in a rock. I threw the rock in the river, and I had an instant healing experience. Like one moment I had all these things, the next moment I didn't. One moment my pain level was a 10. The next moment I was not in pain. I can see your mouth moving, but you're on mute. So
yeah, unmute yourself, Joe.
Yeah, sorry.
I'm good, but I'm not that good.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, I know. What made you pick up the rock, and what was the meaning of the rock at that point?
All right, so let me explain a couple other things first. So, like the moment before this experience happened, I looked back and I saw everything in my life that I wanted to change. Right, like I spent 10 years addicted to drugs and alcohol. I spent 2 years in prison. Now, I've been clean for 22 years, but all that stuff was still present, right? I still wish I would have done this. I wish I would have done that. The next moment, I didn't want to change anything because all of a sudden it all made sense. But also, a lot of other things made sense in that moment too. Like not only did things change physically, but I had a change of heart. Now, I've had 7 right knee surgeries, 2 left knee surgeries, 2 broken ankles, a torn quad, 2 torn hamstrings, all this stuff that the doctor said, well, it's because you play sports. But in about, 2011, after my 6th knee surgery, I started to think, well, maybe there's something other than sports that's playing into this, right? So I did start to understand a little bit more about energy and frequency and vibration. And I even was making patches that were programmed with frequencies and working with athletes on athletic performance and stuff. But I really wasn't willing to utilize that in my own experience because I didn't necessarily at that point think that I was worthy of a greater experience, let's say. So I'd already experimented a few times with programming a rock with energy and doing muscle testing with it and stuff like that. But again, I was not willing to utilize it for myself.
You said, did you say prior to that incident, you were experimenting with the energy and rocks?
Yes, a little bit. Yeah.
Okay. And that was the natural health type, or not the natural, it's a natural healing process, but there's different classes and therapy that you could get into out there in terms of getting in touch with all your bodily functions and everything. Is that the kind of thing you were into for a while?
You know, like a power band bracelet that you can put on that, and then they'll muscle test you, or something that's programmed at 7.83 hertz, or, you know, any of that stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
but again, I was still really physical with my thinking. Like, I hadn't quite let go of it all yet. So when I put all the pain in the rock, like the moment everything shifted was the moment I realized that the pain didn't go into the rock. Like in that moment, I realized how perfect I already was, and that I just needed to allow perfection to present itself.
Yeah.
So I believe everybody is already perfected. We're just not experiencing perfection because of everything that has happened.
You know, it's funny that you mentioned the frequency, because it is a known scientific fact that everything is frequency. Now that's why they have when they can vibrate like the, you know, the resonant frequency of, you know, and match it like for like whatever you're there, they can literally shatter it like the wine glasses or whatever. That's a known scientific fact, and it's I think there's something to that, at least in my opinion, based on what I've seen. But I mean, everything is frequency if you really think about it.
Yeah. Well, and so the most amazing thing that happened in that experience wasn't just that I had a healing experience. It's just that all of a sudden the world looked different. Right? I realized in that moment that I could be an example in other people's healing experiences.
Right. You know, it's funny because I had a similar experience when I was younger. You know, I don't know, I'm just going to just tell the story right here, because why not? Because I think it's relevant for what you're talking about. Like I was fucking around with the television set, the kind that had the vacuum tube and the suction cup on it in the back with the screwdriver, but it was plugged in, right? It shit zapped me. And for like 4 months, I had almost like I would describe it as a higher consciousness experience where I was able to see everything, how everything was connected, how everything was, you know, cause and effect, how it was all intertwined. It was really strange. But I mean, I think it supercharged some of the parts of my brain that maybe we don't normally use. I don't know, but like from that experience, I learned a lot. Yeah.
Well, right after that experience, like I said, the world was a totally different place. Like I was able to charge myself out of my hand.
Same in my own experience. Yeah, go ahead.
Like I was able to bend a spoon. I was able just to do all this crazy stuff that right before that, I wouldn't have thought possible. The next moment, I could see how things worked. Like and then I had this understanding. So even though I had experienced it, let's say instantly, I still went and sought validation for an experience that I just had, right? Because right at first, I didn't necessarily quite grasp what had happened, but I immersed myself, let's say, in the energy world and other energy healers or energy healing, and everybody was doing things in time or was wanting to go back and change a bunch of things so that the present moment was different. And I mean, I remember like the first woman that I helped, she couldn't lift her arms up about like right here. And it took me 15 minutes to go back and clear things up when she was 3, and then when she was 6, and then when she was 8, and then when she was 11. And then when we got to 15, her arms started working. But what I realized fairly quickly was it really had nothing to do with what I was doing. All it was doing was allowing me to have enough confidence that the amplitude was great enough that her arms started working to where she knew that they could work.
Okay.
Right. So I rather quickly transitioned from doing a lot of things to really not doing anything with people. Right. Like now, if you said I have a migraine, I would just say, relax for a second. And then I would just do this. And then literally 5 seconds later, I'll ask you, what do you notice now? Because that's really all that it takes. Because I'm really not doing anything other than being an example of what's possible for people.
Right. You got people have to realize that perception is a choice. How you choose to perceive in a given situation is a conscious choice. Once you realize that you could choose to perceive it in such a way that's gonna minimize your stress and optimize your joy.
Yeah. Or I mean, and now that I come at it from knowing everybody is already perfected, Or if you want to use the quantum model, all possibilities exist in the quantum field, right? Or I have started to recognize that time isn't a constant. Like there's moments in between time when everything is perfect.
Right.
Right. So if you want to look at it like the wave and the particle, right? The particle is
I get where you're going with that visualization. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, like this is one moment, and this is the particle, and then in between that moment is perfection. And then we snap out of it so quickly, we don't even realize that perfection exists in between each moment in time.
Right. No, you're absolutely right, dude. I think it's weird because when I had that experience with that one time, then I had it again like 8 years later. And so both of those combined really, well, they really actually gave me the foundation of my understanding of perception to this day, you know, like how it's a choice, and if you choose to, it's a choice how you choose to look at any given situation. It's a conscious choice. When you realize that, you're like, oh, I can choose how I'm going to let this affect me.
Well, I believe everything is a choice.
It is, whether we really realize it or not.
Yeah, like we have already been gifted whatever it is we believe. Like that was our gift, right? To be perfected. Right now, it's up to us to choose how perfectly we want to live. Right, but there's a difference between cause and effect and causing an effect. For whatever reason, from the time we're kids, we've been led to believe that we have to operate inside this cause and effect system. Right, so everything that happens outside of us affects us.
But we don't have to live in that system because it's not the truth. It's the lie.
It isn't the truth.
Yeah, that's right.
Isn't the truth. But again, it's what everybody convinces us where we need to be.
You're right, though. It's also about belief. Belief is a big part of that. We dupe ourselves a lot of the time into being, you know, into delegating our power away to a perceived higher authority, and then as a result, you know, losing that aspect of ourselves and getting caught in that paradigm, so to speak.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
And it's sometimes hard to get out of. Right, like even though my back and my hips healed instantly, I still every once in a while have trouble with my knee. I've had 7 right knee surgeries. The doctor told me never to run again. But I want to run. I want to play basketball. I want to do things. Every once in a while, my knee starts to hurt. But when it does, I have to be aware enough to know that it has nothing to do with the 7 surgeries. It has nothing to do with the doctor saying not to run, that I get to choose how good my knee feels, right? I get to choose, right? But the thing is cause and effect is sometimes difficult to get out of. Let's say you go for a 10-mile run and you start stacking steps on steps on steps on steps. Pretty soon you look back and say, hey, look how far I've gone. When really you've only gone 1 step and 1 step and 1 step. And once you can start to grasp that, like if we could really grasp it, we could run forever and we wouldn't get tired. Because there is only really 1 step, or there is only really 1 moment.
Yeah, you know, a lot of the things that we cause a stress in our lives, and most people don't realize, is like it's a lot of that kind of like that paradigm where people are caught in that belief that, you know, everything external affects them, and it's not, and it's all part of the same thing. But when you become aware that you can choose not to think like that or perceive shit that way, excuse my language, you then become aware of it, and then you can choose how you want to, you know, perceive any given situation, and in doing so optimize your experience of joy, and then minimize your stress, you know?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. And, you know, amplitude, you know, you want to talk about that, because I know that's probably something that you have talked about in some of your.
Yeah, I was looking at that. That looked interesting. I'd love to hear about that.
But I have a little video clip that later on too, it's real short, and I want to get your opinion on the definition, you know.
Well, the way I explain amplitude or understand amplitude is if something is happening, let's say somebody's experiencing a migraine, and I won't even let's say, you know, it's their migraine or they're just having an experience that is similar to a migraine, or what they've chosen to call a migraine. in order to overcome that, the amplitude has to be greater than all the fears associated with the migraine. So when I'm helping somebody, I'm creating amplitude based off of all my past experiences. And since I already healed personally instantly, I know it's possible. And I've probably helped 100 people with migraines. So I know that it can be something other than a migraine. So the amplitude is really all my experiences and all my knowing. And I'm just allowing the person to utilize that in order to have a greater experience. So
can I ask you a quick question?
Yeah.
You're talking about frequency-based modalities of healing, basically.
Well, I'm talking about being the greatest example possible.
Okay. You're talking about from more of a personal level like that. Okay, gotcha. I'm just
Or
curious.
more even on a consciousness level. Like I don't get too wrapped up into the energy anymore, because I think the energy comes after. Like there are times.
Gotcha. I see where you're going with that from a philosophical, intentful, conscious awareness kind of perspective. I get that.
Yeah. Like if I had 10 people that had migraines and I focused on them all, their experience after is all different. Somebody might say, oh, I feel warmth and tingling. Somebody might say, oh, I feel cool. Or somebody might say, I feel heat. Somebody might say, I don't feel anything, but my migraine's gone. Right? But the migraine is gone instantly. Everything that happens after that instant is somebody grasping that the migraine's gone. So if the person thinks they need heat, then usually heat is what comes next.
Okay. Yeah, it's a conscious, it's a manifestation of what we expect or believe will happen.
All of our experiences play into it. So somebody that's, let's say, big into chakras and auras and all that kind of stuff might feel their crown chakra opening up, or might feel their heart chakra opening up, or might see a white light, or might feel warmth or tingling or a frequency or all that stuff. But it's after it's already changed.
Right. And it comes down to the fact that people's beliefs are what create the reality, is what you're getting at, more or less.
And what I'm doing is I'm getting out of the beliefs and into the knowing. So if
that's where it's at too. I actually concur with you based on the two experiences I had mentioned. It is in the knowing. It's in the just that knowing that, because you have to use your intuition there too.
Yeah.
Back in like 19, might have been about 19. I'm sorry, 20. The year 2000, in 1999, I was reading Eckhart Tolle, and it was interesting. I learned how to look at myself from the outside and not evaluate myself, but just get to know my own self.
Yeah.
Does that make any sense?
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense. You learn how to look at yourself from an objective standpoint, basically.
Yeah. And it took me a couple years of working through all of this stuff to finally really grasp what is happening. Like in the beginning, I thought I needed to do all this stuff for people in order for them to heal. Or even in the beginning, I might have thought that I was healing people. Right now, I'm just an example of possibility. I'm not a magnet. I'm an example.
You're showing other people how they can do it themselves.
Right. Based off of my experience. And then allowing people to utilize that. But it's really not just my experience. It's everybody's experiences. And the only the best way, I guess, because it's probably not the only way, but the best way to be an example is to let everything else go. So when I'm helping someone, I just get out of my.
I came to that same conclusion with my own experiences.
Yeah. Like I just get out of my head and into my heart, and people have healing experiences. The more out of my head I become, the greater the amplitude probably is. Like I had a woman that was in a wheelchair for 11 years that just got up and started walking. Now, at the time, this was kind of right towards the beginning, I didn't know she was in a wheelchair. I was helping people on Messenger, and I was helping multiple people
Well,
at
that's
once, and I was just
interesting,
typing
isn't
a
it?
message
That's
and typing a
fascinating.
message. And she's like, oh, my leg hurts. And I'm like, okay, relax for a second. And then 10 seconds later, I'm like, okay, what do you notice now? And then went off to the next person. 1 minute later, she comes back and says, OMG, ... OMG, you're not going to believe this. I'm out of my wheelchair for the first time in 11 years.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's interesting.
Had I seen her in the wheelchair, I might not have been able to create all that amplitude, because
Right, because you would have been consciously aware of it, and it would have been a thing on your mind where you wouldn't have been able to focus
right.
your full
When
intent.
even though I might have thought I could let it go, I might not have totally let it go.
Right,
Like
you'd
I've
have
had
that doubt in your mind because of that.
Yeah. I mean, I've had a blind woman whose vision came back. I have another woman who couldn't eat food. She was down to like 3 foods that she could eat. I focused on her. I said, okay, go make something that you haven't been able to eat in the past. She made a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. She took a bite and realized that her stomach was better. But her stomach had been better for 5 minutes. She just didn't realize it yet.
So she associated that with that, basically.
Well, the sandwich is what allowed her to let it all go.
Right.
Just like if somebody,
okay, got like a trigger.
yeah, even though it was already gone, she just didn't realize it yet. Sometimes we're better and we don't even know it. And then we just go back to being not better. Like somebody that says, I can't walk up and down the stairs, showing them that they can walk up and down 1 step might not be enough. If somebody says, I can't walk up and down the stairs, and I get them to do 10 steps, most of the time they don't sit back down, because why would they? Right? And I don't even think that believing ahead of time is a requirement, but knowing afterwards is.
Yes. Well, I mean, I would say knowing is probably more of an intentful step above the whole other aspect I was talking about what you just how do you like if you're in the attitude of, oh, I can't do it, you're in that's what you expect, so that's what you're gonna you're creating for yourself.
Yeah, but again, people don't need to know ahead of time. Just like the woman that couldn't eat food, that was the truth for her. She didn't need to know that she could eat food, but when I showed her that she could, she needed to know that she did it. Because once you know that you can do something, you're no longer thinking about it. You don't question it. There's no other things that come in.
You're right. And it becomes second nature most of the time.
Yeah, all of the time. And the greater the knowing, the easier it is. Right? So the day before my healing experience, I tried to take my kids paddleboarding, and I couldn't even stand up on a paddleboard. I drove back to Portland and I paddleboarded across the Columbia River and back, which is like a half a mile across, right? And I paddleboarded as if I've already done it or had done it for years, right? So I knew something had shifted, right? Because I had 2 things that were total opposites. One thing was I couldn't stand up on the paddleboard. The next thing was I was paddleboarding across the Columbia River. I didn't have any other references of paddleboarding because I'd never tried it before the day before. Just like if somebody says I can't walk up and down the stairs and I show them they can walk up 1 step, it might not be enough because 1 step is still close to not being able to do it. But 10 steps separates them enough so that they know that they can do it.
Yeah. I like the, the whole idea of being able to just be that healed person. And, do you think it's tied to a positive attitude in some ways?
Well, I don't know what it's tied to necessarily. I just know that what has happened doesn't necessarily matter. Like any moment we want a second chance, it's there. Any moment we want to participate in a miracle, it's there. People helping people is probably the easiest way to have that experience because it's sometimes hard for us to get out of our own way. right? But I remember I did an interview with somebody, and they were wondering what I did before the experience to have the experience, when really there is no requirement ahead of time, because really it doesn't matter what you do. It only matters that moment. But once you have a great experience, then you're required to hold on to that by knowing that you had it. And then moving forward, if you want to choose to do things differently, you can. But you don't have to go and change the past. You just have to, moving forward, be different. So my change of heart was when I realized I could be an example in other people's healing. Had I just taken my miracle and run, I might have gone right back to where I was. But now I have my experience and all the experiences I've had with people. So even if I look back and think, well, maybe my experience wasn't what I thought that it was, I continue to have experiences with people every day. So I know that I have that experience.
Right.
Whereas if it would have just been me, and just me going on about doing my own thing, I would have been right back to where I was, because there wouldn't have been a change of heart.
Gotcha. And have do you have a, I know you have a regular clientele that you deal with, but I mean, when you're out in public, do you talk about this with people?
Well, I talk about it any opportunity I get.
Well, it's like your work. It's your passion. You seem to love to do what you do. So I mean, I kind of have the same. I love what I do. I'm in the IT field by trade, and it's my specific field of expertise. But I do this on the side, So like, I feel the same way about that kind of work that I do. So,
but I'm not necessarily the greatest at doing it for a business, because I get so.
You don't have to be, though. You just have to enjoy it.
Yeah, I get so wrapped up in the miracles that I love it when people have a great experience.
Yeah, I totally get that.
Yeah, like in the beginning, I was out amongst people more than I am now. Right. Like I'm pretty busy with my kids and all the stuff that's going on in my life. Like after my healing experience, I kind of had a little bit of time just to kind of go and put myself with the people, and I had some great experiences.
Yeah. And well, how about your kids? Do they, what do they think about your healing ability and, some of the experiences that you've told them about, how are they doing in life? And, is that so, and how long have you been doing, what year was this when it first happened to you?
So my healing experience was in 2015.
Okay.
It took me a little bit of time to figure out what I was doing. But right away, I started playing in that energy arena, let's say. Right. And I was doing a lot of energy stuff, like I was bending spoons and charging my cell phone in my hand, and I could put my hand by people's ears and they would hear their own personal song, or I could program crystals, or crazy stuff, or stuff that I would have thought was crazy. Now I don't think anything's really crazy. Right. But
it's weird that you mentioned that, because during my own hire, I had something very, very similar, but not quite exactly the same. I had an experience where I had a memory of something happening before it happened, which was really odd, but it was like out of sequence. And I'm gonna leave it at that. I'm not gonna go any further. But it was really, really strange, but it really enlightened me as to certain things, I believe.
Yeah, but what's kind of interesting is when I was a kid, I would have these experiences where my eyes would all of a sudden not work, right? Like everything would get fuzzy, but not really fuzzy in a totally can't see way, but fuzzy in a vibration way. Right after my healing experience, I started seeing like that again. When I was a kid, I thought there was something wrong. And I went to the eye doctor 2 or 3 different times because I kept telling my mom, I can't see. Right. And the eye doctor's like, well, there's nothing wrong with your eyes. Right. So after my healing experience, was able to see how I saw things before. Like all of a sudden, everything was energy.
Okay.
Right? Also,
have you ever heard of Gordon Michael Scallion and read his book called, I can't remember. So it's called Notes from the Cosmos. he describes having a very similar kind of experience
Yeah.
when he went through what he actually sounds very similar to what you went through, but to some
Yeah.
degree. But it was fascinating to read that because like I read that back in the early 2000s, but I recommend the book. If you haven't read it, it's a really great read, even if it's, it's really good. It'll get, it talks about a lot of stuff that most people like, the stuff that you're talking about.
Yeah.
It's really interesting.
Right after my experience, like I felt everything. Like I didn't realize how empathic I was until right after my experience. Like the next day or 2 days later, there was somebody running down the street and I could feel their heartbeat in my chest. At first, I couldn't figure out what was going on. I thought it was my heartbeat until I realized that, oh my gosh, I could tell you the heartbeat of somebody walking down the street, right? After that, I could tell you the heartbeat of somebody anywhere in the world. All I needed to do was tune into it.
All you need to do is tune into the resonant frequency of it.
Yeah. Yeah. But all of that stuff, like I used to go into the bookstore and they would put a book in my hand that I hadn't read, and I could tell them everything that was in the book because I knew what was in the book. Like whether I was picking up on the energy or the frequency or the vibration or whatever, I just knew. Right? When it comes to healing now, I don't necessarily get that in tune because it no longer matters what somebody else is feeling. If you say you have a migraine, that's really all that matters. If I feel your migraine, then there's two people with a migraine.
Right. You're talking about picking up on it empathically, more or less.
Yeah. But being empathic and being sympathetic or sympathizing with people are probably two different things.
Would you like to explain for our viewers the difference? I'm actually curious as to what the difference between the two myself, if you don't mind.
I mean, I don't know what the technical difference is, but empathy,
in your opinion,
in my opinion, empathy is a knowing.
Okay.
Sympathizing with somebody is a feeling.
Okay.
If you say my head hurts, I know what a head hurts feels like. I don't need to feel it in the moment. And if I'm feeling it, it's really hard to help you with it because then there's two people feeling it.
Okay.
Right? Empathy is knowing that you have a headache and knowing I can help.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah.
And then holding that knowing until you know that you don't have a migraine. Right? Like I said, like in the beginning, I thought I needed to feel what everybody was feeling to help them.
No, you don't. It's funny because I'm an empath myself. I don't know if you know that, but it's crazy because like I found that you can't help everybody, and in certain times you have to distance yourself from certain kinds of people that have negative energy because you pick up on it, and it'll drain you if you're not careful, and you have to pick and choose your battles. From my own experience.
Only if you think it will.
Well, that's what's been effective for me, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So how does the brain, how does the brain, how do you study things how the brain works? And does that have something to do with everything? I mean, the way we can, control some parts of our body, such as relaxing, meditation. Is it mostly in our thinking and how we can actually train our brain to be a more powerful in terms of amplitude?
Interesting. Yeah, that's an interesting question.
Do that on purpose, or how does that work?
I don't know. The more I study, the more confusing it becomes.
Well, I was just trying to get an idea. I understand that
the more answers you find, the more questions you get.
Yeah,
because I end up with more or less.
I mean, let's say Joe Dispenza is great at figuring out how the head works. You still have to let all that go for a moment in order to have the greater experience.
Yeah. Okay.
To think yourself there is pretty difficult.
Yeah, I know. I get what you're saying. It's kind of like you have to almost trick your mind, yourself into believing or knowing in some degrees. Like you got to let go of the technical and the skeptical portion of the mind and just have that, get more in tune with your resonant intuition.
Yeah. I mean, if the heart is a circle and the head is a circle, the circles don't quite cross. the acting in faith is the moment you get out of your head and just allow yourself to be in your heart. But you can't think yourself there. It's like the person standing on the cliff wanting to jump into the water. If you're standing next to them and trying to convince them of all the reasons they can do it, it's not very effective. If you jump into the water and hold that space, eventually they will jump.
Yeah, no, it makes perfect sense. You can't, until they have that experience themselves, they can't know it, like you're saying.
Right. So that's why it's much better for people to help people have greater experiences than an individual sitting around by themselves, with all their past, trying to get out of it.
Right. Yeah, it's not something that you can approach from a logical standpoint because of the nature of the experience in and of itself.
Like if somebody comes to me and wants to know how it works, I would much rather say, here, let's have an experience and I'll show you what's possible.
Exactly. No, I think that's the best way to do it. I mean, you can't really, I mean, the best way to teach people and show people is by example, of course.
Yes. And unconditional love is a language that we don't have words for. The heart has a language that we don't understand. We know the heart's more powerful than the head, right? But can we really grasp what that perfection is? Right. So instead of trying to explain to people, I just show them that they're better than what they thought. As soon as you start to shift their perspective that what has happened doesn't necessarily matter, it opens people up to greater experiences.
No, it's funny you should mention that. I think you're absolutely right on that. That's been my own experience as well when I've been trying to reach people at times, just kind of like from a perspective or of perceptual awareness, if you will.
And what I found, we are all examples. Yeah. Then we get to choose how great of an example we want to be. So there's a lot of people out there that would say, if there's a room full of negative people, you need to protect yourself. Right? Like, Stephen, this is probably for the empaths, right? Like, don't go into the room because you're going to get infected.
Right. If you're around people that are toxic energy, you're going to, there's a term, energy vampires, basically.
Right.
As an empath, if I'm around those kind of people, it's going to drain me. If I'm not.
I have a feeling he's going to say that doesn't bother him at all. Watch.
Okay.
Well, it can. But okay. If you walk into that room knowing your positivity is enough, and then allowing everybody to choose how they want to be, it doesn't affect you.
Right. See, and for me, it's like it's so intense. Like I have to pick and choose whether I want to even be, because like some of the time, if it's a bunch of them like that, then it's like, oh, that's too much. I can't. It's overload for me.
Because what happens is your example becomes less because you're protecting yourself.
Yeah. Okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
If you just be the example and allow people to choose, it doesn't bother you.
Okay.
The problem is again, we're so programmed to believe we have to operate in cause and effect. And then if you walk into a room with negative people, that you have to have them change.
Right. But it's not even that. It's even the choice of being able to choose not to even walk into that situation, which is also a way of effective change, I believe, if you look at it from that perspective as well, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's no different than viruses and bacteria. We can participate with them, or we can be more than them. But when you protect yourself from a virus, you put yourself on the same level as a virus. If you know that you're more than a virus, the virus doesn't affect you.
I totally get where you're going with that. You're right. Like the more you worry and stress about shit, the more you're going to cause it to manifest, more or less.
Right. And we get to choose what level we participate at.
So after you threw that rock in the water, you begun a new life of healing. I mean, you somehow decided, or something happened within you. You threw the rock. Based on some things you were going through and leading up to that day, and you just stopped fighting it in your head. And just said to your whole body that you're going to be healed.
I didn't really have to say anything because I was already healed. I just allowed the experience to present itself. And then I held on to it knowing that it happened. But also, the moment before, I took on everybody's stuff. Like, as soon as my life started going the way I didn't want it to go, I convinced myself that it was never going to be good. So I might as well take everybody's stuff. So at least their
Okay.
life could be a little bit better.
Yeah, it's like kind of being a pessimist versus an optimist.
Right. So all the stuff that happened to me was just a result of disharmony. Like, really, there's only harmony and a little less harmony.
Let's talk about disharmony. I like that subject. Well, I like it, all the subjects. I haven't experienced a lot of immediate pain in my life, so to speak. I don't know what it is, and I know it's probably going to come one day where I'll have some incident that'll wake that up, but maybe not. If I continue with my subconscious mind, each day taking breaths and just putting myself in a place where I can think. I try to do that on a daily basis, and it has been something that has helped me. But let's talk about harmony and stuff, and how we can, what would be, like in your sessions, how would you teach, people to look at harmony? Because a lot of people are probably struggling.
Great question, Joe.
Like our group, we have people that are in the family court systems on the Heatherly Warriors podcast. They're under a lot of stress. It's difficult to even get the energy to figure out, what you should be doing with this whole sphere of what they're in. And other people are in financial issues, around the world right now, food shortages, blah, blah, blah. So balancing is very important. Everybody has to balance. Also, just being smart, knowing how to do certain things in life. But, the harmony that we've created, I know I just got a text the other day from an ex-girlfriend who's beautiful in Nashville. And I reread something that she sent to me, and, it definitely was, right to my gut, it was pretty bad. But looking back, I was in disharmony. I was only thinking about myself. I was, constantly thinking about my own self. And I suppose to a point I still have that attitude, but I walk upright, kind of in amplitude now, to where I feel good about myself. So I am going to act confident. So I feel good and everything. But let's talk about, disharmony and harmony, and, what would you teach people, or what would you tell people would be your steps to do?
Great question.
I more show people what harmony feels like.
Okay.
Maybe give us an example of, like, because our viewers are curious to know, like, how would you help them, like, hypothetically, if they were in a session? Give us an example. I think what that.
Let's say somebody's dishonest. Since the past isn't real, there's only the present moment. If I show them how honest they can be, all they have to do moving forward is to be honest. So harmony would be the being honest. Disharmony would be thinking they need to continue to be dishonest because they've been dishonest in the past.
Okay. Okay, that was
No
a
different than
very good
pain.
description. Yeah, definitely.
If somebody's experiencing pain, that's disharmony. When I show them that they don't need to experience pain, then moving forward, they get to choose how to be.
That makes sense.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. That's
really
that's
simple.
Like basically what I was saying about perception being a choice. And if you're aware of that's a conscious choice, then you can choose to have harmony instead of disharmony.
And sometimes it's hard to find harmony when there's a lot of stuff going on. So my friend Trisha, she was paralyzed in 2015. I can get it to where she can kick her leg. I can't get it to where she stands up and walks. Okay. The experience that she had was so dramatic. And up until a few months ago, she was going to court to try and get compensation for a drunk truck driver that hit her on the side of the road. So it's really hard to overcome the past and create harmony when she's still stuck in the court thing.
Right. It makes it, exponentially difficult, I think, for people because
Right.
they're so busy trying to fight for their lives and what they're being, what's happening to them.
Right. And choice looks different then because you can choose one or the other. If she wants compensation, she can't walk. But we're constantly doing this in our heads. We're picking and choosing what we allow when we can really let it all go and the next moment have everything.
Right. No, I get what you're saying, realizing that we don't have to keep participating in that paradigm or that cycle anymore. We could step outside of it and say, you know what, I'm not going to let this affect me anymore. To some degree, no, totally. But man, I mean, just they do that by intentionally as a tactic to break people down that are the victims that are going through this. It's really, really like it's premeditated from these places, these institutions.
I think a good way to look at it would be like if you go shopping and you start filling bags, eventually you're going to run out of space. There might be a time when you find something that you really want, but you no longer have any space to put it. And if you spent money on the stuff you already have in your hands, you might not want to let it go in order to have the greatest of things. In order to have the greatest of things, we have to let it all go. Because you can't go into that moment with anything if you want everything. Okay. And again, we pick and choose the things we want to hold on to. No different than when I struggled with addiction. Even though I thought I wanted to be clean, I didn't want to give it all up because I still wanted to go party. I still wanted to hang out with my friends on the weekend. I still thought, oh, well, maybe I can do ecstasy and acid. I just won't do meth. Like whatever that is that we say, or I'll be clean unless my girlfriend breaks up with me. Well, guess what? Your girlfriend's always going to break up.
That thing that you tell yourself subconsciously in your head, in your mind, your internal voice. So to speak.
Yeah. As soon as you let it all go, it is no longer an issue.
Is there like when people want to let things go, if they're sitting here listening to you now, they're listening and they're going, well, how do I do that? I really want to start practicing, those baby steps, what can they do?
By participating in greater experiences, either with themselves or with somebody else. Like the people in my healing class, I'm not just teaching people how to heal themselves. I'm teaching people how to be an example in other people's healing. Sometimes it takes being an example in somebody else's healing so that you can really accept it for yourself.
Okay.
I don't have a ton of systems for people.
Right. I understand that. I'm just asking kind of off the cuff, and I knew that going into this.
And people ask me all the time, well, what's the system?
Right. There's no system. I get that.
There really isn't no system, but I know from my own personal experience, I like minimizing my stress and realizing that choosing how to look at a given situation is it can be almost critical because you can change your whole perception of reality and just let go of everything. And the process basically has been my own experience, and that's been the way that's worked for me. But I think it's different for everyone.
And we do create our own experiences. Even the people that are the most unhealthy sometimes are the greatest of manifestors.
Explain that. That's interesting.
Well, my sister's very unhealthy. She has been most of her life. If she needs her hands to swell up, they will swell up. She is great at manifesting sickness because she thinks that's her only choice. If she could let all that go, she would be the greatest of examples.
Yeah, she would turn it from a disharmonious experience to a harmonious one, basically.
Right. Just like the difference between living and dying.
And so you're there to give these people some hope, and give them an avenue to start thinking, or not thinking, but changing their, just the way, letting go of that stuff.
I don't give people hope. I show them hope.
Right. Okay.
You show them how you help them to realize how they can see this for themselves, basically.
Or I show them how easy it is for things to shift.
Okay, gotcha.
So, using pain, let's say, as an example, if somebody says my pain level's a 10, all I need to do is show them that it can be something other than a 10. For whatever reason, they think that it only can be a 10. When I show them that, look, it's a 6, or look, it's a 4, then all of a sudden, if that can change, anything can change. If the smallest thing can change, anything can change. If one person can heal, everybody can heal. If a migraine can heal, a paralyzed person can heal. We're going to have to create some more amplitude to overcome all the fear around being paralyzed before those people start standing up and walking.
And harmony.
Right? And harmony or amplitude or whatever that is. But the easiest way to do that is by more people healing.
Yeah.
Right? If there were more instant healing experiences, it would be that much easier for people to have those experiences.
Right. And right. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, and I mean, I picture a time when healing does happen rather rapidly. Right now, if I walk down the street, the amplitude might not be great enough that people start healing.
Right.
There might be a time when we can walk down the street and people just heal. But I know that it's possible because I have a 3-minute healing video that's just me staring into the camera, and people will message me all the time and say, oh my gosh, you're not going to believe this. I watched your healing video and all of a sudden my neck's better or my hip's not hurting.
Right. That's great. Yeah, I mean, and you know, I guess you know, from being just, you know, that harmony, I think, is just important. I mean, that is part of it's an exercise, you know, getting yourself in harmony. It is work. I mean, yeah. I wouldn't think that it wouldn't be. I think you have to put some effort into trying to reorganize your thinking and your a little bit of your thinking for sure, and then focusing on those things that you have to let go, you know, focused intention. So there must be that for sure. A person would have to get some focused attention on the things that maybe are in disharmony would be a good start, would you say?
But only from this moment forward. If you say I can't walk up and down the stairs, that's disharmony. When I show you that you can walk up and down the stairs, that restores harmony. Moving forward, if you continue to walk up and down the stairs, you're living in harmony. If you sit back down and then say, I can't do it, you're creating disharmony.
Right. So
only because you've just done it.
Right.
If you hadn't done it, it's not as much disharmony as once you do it and then don't do it again.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's the disharmony. That's the separation. Right? If you're gifted a second chance and then you can walk up and down the stairs, you better know that you can do it moving forward. And you just did it.
Right.
Are there people? I don't know if there's any comments or anything.
Yeah, there's some comments. Just keeping one person here says, well, she was talking about when you were talking going into that room of negative people. She says, Angela says, you can go into the room. You just need to be aware of what your own feelings are from others.
Yeah, or you just need to go into the room and be more than all the people in the room.
And then it says, she talks about some government stuff too, but words were designed to hide what we feel.
Yeah. I mean, I was just wondering if there's anybody listening that's in pain, if they want to post a comment, I'll just focus on them and I can show people what it is that I do.
Absolutely. And I could open up a phone line. Let me just see if somebody wants to call. Or if anyone wants to to ask a question, or do you want him to focus? So Jennifer says she's in pain. I mean, you can, Jennifer Calentine,
All
and
right.
she's one of our members,
Yeah.
and she's going
All
through.
right. Well, I'll focus on Jennifer. So Jennifer, just on a scale from 1 to 10, what's your pain level? The only reason I even ask is because it's sometimes good to have a reference for when something is different.
Mhm.
But to me, it doesn't necessarily matter what it is. I just want to show them that it's different than what they say that it is.
Yeah, I'm just waiting to see if
Yeah.
there's, she said her pain is a 6.
All right. All right. So I'll focus on Jennifer.
Okay.
All right, Jennifer, what do you notice now? I mean, and really that's how simple it can be. It doesn't take a ton of time. All I'm really doing is just getting out of my head and into my heart. When I'm in my heart, people heal. If anybody's in their heart, people heal.
I actually was watching your show the other day with Jesse, and I had been experiencing just a lot of stiffness lately because of the weather, I guess. And I took some breaths along, and relaxed and did some things, and then I just got a better, I got this outlook. I guess my conscience I've trained to be a little more upright. I guess it's the amplitude. I try to be aware, and I try to make myself into this energized person, even if I'm not feeling good.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes any sense. She says it's a 3.
It does.
She says
it's a 3.
Yeah, so it's gone. Yep.
All right. So relax again, Jennifer. Hold on. All right. How about now, Jennifer? Like, healing has become extremely difficult. It's really not that difficult. It's really simple. But just like when you were saying, well, maybe it's because of the weather that I'm stiff.
Yeah, and I didn't accept that. That's what happened, is I decided not to accept.
Yeah.
That was
It's
pretty
just
cool.
like,
As I was watching that, I did. I decided, and I woke up and I felt better, and I walked around better, and I just didn't think about the pain anymore.
Yeah. Well, I used to take allergy medication every spring until I realized that I don't have to participate. I get to choose. Right after my healing experience, it took me a while. I had taken sleeping medication for 15 years. It took me a while to finally let that go. And it was really difficult because I had created this huge experience around sleeping.
Yeah. She says it's a 1 now. So she's
right.
she's feeling better already.
One more time, Jennifer. All right. How about now, Jennifer?
And then we have Stacy Lee. I think Stacy's out of the UK, I believe, or somewhere in Europe. He's been in the hospital. It's been terrible. He's had a lot of stuff happening with his nerves, and he's been really just having issues. And he says he has nerve damage, pain level 10.
All right, let's focus on him. What was his name again?
Stacy Lee.
Stacy Lee. All right, I'll focus on Stacy.
Yeah. Jennifer's feeling much better. A 0. She's relaxed.
So real quick for Jennifer, she just needs to know that she's better.
Yep. And walk forward in amplitude. That's
Right.
what I did. And I walked forward and I said, no more. I just threw the rock like you did, I guess.
Right. Yeah. Because now she gets to choose. Whereas 5 minutes ago, she might not have thought she had a choice. Right? Once you show someone that they have a choice, then they get to choose what to do moving forward. It's sometimes hard to hold on to. Like there's times I'll have to focus on people 2 or 3 days in a row until they finally grasp it. Or there might be somebody that says, I have a migraine every morning when I wake up. And I'll say, well, message me in the morning and we'll focus on it.
Okay.
Okay. So what was Stacy Lee? Is that?
Stacy Lee, yeah.
Okay. I'm focused on Stacy.
Yep.
All right, Stacy, what do you notice now? And I come at things now just knowing people are already perfect, knowing people are already perfected, and just holding that knowing until they start to realize it. Sometimes it takes 5 seconds. Sometimes it takes a day. Sometimes it takes a month. Like there's times I'll focus on them, and then a month later, they'll send me a message and say, you're not going to believe this. I'm totally better. Had I messaged them every day for that month, the experience might have been different. But since
You're talking about as a result of your efforts causing an undesired result effect versus not doing that every day and getting the outcome that you just that you're trying that is more effective that way, basically.
Well, I just mean holding that knowing regardless of what somebody says.
Okay, gotcha.
Right? Because if you already know somebody's better, they might say a lot of things that are different than being better. If you start participating in what they say, there's no longer the space for them to be better.
Gotcha.
If you hold, it's just like if you say a prayer and then the next moment discount the prayer by saying a lot of stuff that goes against that prayer is not going to be very effective. But prayers, just like focus or just like this, is held in time and space. It is just there.
Okay, no, I see what you're saying. Like, yeah, because you'll self-sabotage what you're trying to accomplish with your knowing.
Right. Like if you know somebody's perfect and then they tell you all the reasons why they're not, and then you get wrapped up into those reasons, well, then there's no space for perfection. And then there's 2 people that are participating less than they could.
Right, because it becomes it lowers you down to lower frequency, basically.
Right. So I don't know. Are you able to see the comments? I was focusing on Stacy Lee.
I'm seeing it right now. She says a bit better. I am actually shocked. Thanks.
All right. Well, let's go again because I want it more than just a bit better. So just relax again, Stacy.
Thank you for your comments, Stacy. We appreciate it. Jen says, is it similar to internalizing the negative energy?
Hold on 1 second. Okay, Stacy, tell me how that is.
No, that was from somebody like a viewer named Jen who was asking.
Oh, okay, yeah, I know. I was just saying to Stacy to let me know how that feels.
Oh, okay, go. Yeah, you're fine. Go ahead.
What did they say again?
They were asking, is it similar to internalizing the negative energy? And this was just a moment ago, right before Stacy's comment, I believe.
Yeah.
By Jennifer Caliente.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if we ever want to really internalize things.
But what I mean, I think she means like, is that what's going on? I believe she's asking when somebody does focus on the negative or the not being able to be.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, if you're focusing on something, it's hard to let it go when that's where your focus is. Right. But
yeah,
again,
I think that's what she was getting at.
Yeah, that's why it helps to have somebody else in your experience, because I can get out of my own way to help somebody else easier than I can get out of my own way to help myself, because I know all my stories.
Right. You know, it's like you can give people, you're great at giving them advice, but for some reason you can't take your own advice.
Yeah.
Kind of deal.
Yeah. But eventually you have to take your own advice, or you won't be able to create enough amplitude. Or
Well, you know what I'm saying.
I do.
I can give I'll give everybody else the best advice, but then when it comes to applying that to myself, it never works the way I anticipate.
For sure. But it's no different than I have somebody that
Go ahead. Sorry.
I focused on, and they were able to get on the scale, and we were able to move at 7 pounds. The thing is moving forward, they have to forgive themselves for everything they ate the last year, or that 7 pounds won't stay off.
Yes, no, you're right. They have to let go of beating themselves up about it.
Right. And then moving forward, they have to make healthier choices, or else what they're going to say to themselves is nothing's changed.
Yeah, but see, you have to put in the work to make change. That's the key too.
The work is letting go of what has happened. And then
But I mean, like
forward,
by not eating that way in the future is what I'm saying. Like that.
right.
Yeah.
Right. But again, it doesn't matter what they have done. You could be a jerk and then not. Just
Right.
moving forward, don't be a jerk.
And
It's
don't
that
forgive
simple.
yourself. That's a key thing too. You're right though.
Yeah. Forgive yourself and forgive others, because you can't hold on to something and expect it to be something else.
Right.
Okay. Did Stacy say how he was feeling now?
He's feeling some actual nerve relief.
Okay.
That's what he says. Yep.
Yep.
Awesome. So the most important thing is that if it can shift even the slightest, that means it can go away. If it was exactly what you thought that it was, and that it was permanent, it wouldn't even shift in the slightest. If you can start to show people that things can change rather rapidly, then more things can change.
Right. Stacy Lee says, I'm definitely interested in more about this, Joseph, because I do the chakra meditation, etc. Super healthy eating.
Yeah. So I think all he's lacking, is this letting go and moving in harmony.
And then Jen responded, so she said, I wasn't told, was showed. It gave me the power of choice back. So I think she's talking about what you're talking about, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, we get to choose how we participate. But again, sometimes when our experiences have been a certain way for so long, we don't think we have another choice. But that's what this is about. This is
it's breaking our chains of that conditioning and realizing that we do.
Yeah. And all I am is an example of what's possible for people. Healing is just the result of being present and being in your heart. But it works for anything.
Right.
I mean, this isn't just unique to healing. This is just how life is.
You're right. From my own experience that I had with those two experiences, I definitely learned that, it's much grander than the scope of just that aspect of it. It's like a way you can almost apply it to anything and everything.
Right.
Almost.
It's no different than getting the spoon to bend. Okay. The spoon is only firm because that's what it's meant to be. If you come to that spoon with enough unconditional love and ask it to be something else and hold on to that as it becomes something else, because that's really the toughest part. It's not knowing the spoon can bend. It's when the spoon starts to become pliable that all of a sudden you're like, if this can happen, then what else can happen?
It's that realization of coming to that realization and then having that knowing as a result of that realization.
Yeah. Yeah. But also the spoon's already bent, just like people are already perfected.
Right. We just don't know it yet.
We're just choosing for the spoon to be firm.
Maybe over the years, people have just, lost their sense of, do you ever study like ancient, like the Indians or anything, rituals and stuff like that?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. And like the rituals are just what they do to get out of their head and into their heart. It becomes a routine. It becomes a way of being, not a way of thinking.
Right. Because it flows naturally once you get in that space, basically.
Right, because you're just being that example. You're just being that experience. You're not thinking about it. You're just being it.
Right. It's like yeah, no, you're right. It's like there is such thing as overthinking stuff to some extent. But
Yes.
and that's not the space to where you can get in that way, that mode where
Yeah.
you're talking about. That's the knowing space, or the intuitive knowing, if you will, to where beyond the shoe without having to check or question it. You just know.
Yeah. Or the transition from cause and effect to cause and effect. From acting like I don't get too wrapped up in like the 3D and the 5D and all that kind of stuff. But yes, 3D is really cause and really firm in cause and effect. 5D is more causing an effect, being the creators of everything.
Oh, okay. No, I see what you're saying. Yeah, you're talking about. Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense to me. That makes perfect sense to me because I've also come to that conclusion as well as far as the 5D goes. You're talking about.
Yeah.
That I'm fascinated by that whole subject too.
Yeah, and we really are the creators of our own experience.
Yeah, I absolutely learned that with my own two experiences for sure.
It's really difficult with everything that's going on.
From that. Go ahead.
Like it's really difficult with everything that's going on because it pulls us back into cause and effect. But just like it's really tough to be empathic and still hold the space for things to change because we want it so bad that we want to cause an effect in it. Like, don't do this, don't do this, this is bad.
Get out of the ego space.
Yeah, that's wrong. Or look at what's going on in the world and all that kind of stuff. When you're in it like that, you're really not holding the space for the world to be any different.
Right.
Like unconditional love or leading with your heart is just allowing it to be whatever it is and knowing that your example is enough to shift it.
Gotcha.
Not forcing it. Like, I don't think that let's say the universe is held together by force. I think the universe is held together by unconditional love. Like somebody came to the planets with enough unconditional love and said, this is the plan. And if you want to choose to be a planet, be a planet. And the planets choose to be planets because why would you choose to be anything else? Because the plan is so perfect.
Gotcha.
Right. But they're not forced to be planets because if you force someone to be anything other than what they want to be, they're not going to do it long term.
Right. No, you're right. Because people, if you like for short term kind of change, yeah, that might be effective, but it's not going to be any lasting long change because it's not coming from their own will. Right. It's being coerced or forced on them, which in effect does not work for making lasting, long lasting change.
Right. And we probably don't have enough energy to force things to be something different. Like I used to try to build an apple in people's hands, right? Like really energetically though, like I would like start to move the energy and like pull things in, and we could get it to where you could almost see the apple. You could feel the apple, but by the time it started getting close, I was out of energy.
Stacy Lee says, so what do you think about quantum healing?
Quantum what?
Quantum healing.
Well, I believe that we're already perfected. The quantum model is that all possibilities exist. So I guess you could call this some sort of quantum healing, but I would say quantum healed because we are already healed. We're just not experiencing it. And every level of it is there, present for us. Right? So if somebody says they have pain levels of 10, it's also a 1, it's a 0, it's a 3, it's a 7. It's whatever they create it to be.
Okay. Fascinating. Yeah, that was great, dude. It's been fascinating talking with you. It's been a great interview. We should definitely do this again sometime. There's a lot of different subjects like to basically back and forth with you on consciousness and stuff, because that's kind of right up my alley. I'm fascinated by that.
Yeah,
the whole philosophical aspect of it.
It's really a lot simpler than people make it out to be. Healing has become extremely difficult because of all the information. If you go out into the world, they're going to tell you everything that's wrong with you. When there's nothing wrong with you, the only thing that's happening is your experience isn't as great as the one that you could be having.
Right.
And you're basing it off of everything that has happened. Right? If you go to the doctor and he tells you there's something wrong with you and you believe that, then you're going to
doesn't that always result in the fear space? Like when you have that experience, like if you notice anything that that tries to generate fear, or if you allow yourself to be if you consent to fear, that's where I think that path begins. But if you don't consent to fear and you live in that knowing space, you're going to be able to much more successfully live live the experience you want to live.
Yeah, I think there was a woman in 1986 that had multiple personalities. They could MRI her in one personality and she had cancer. The moment she switched personalities, they MRI'd her and she didn't have cancer. That's how quickly things can shift. But it has to be complete. She was two totally different people.
It's awesome. Well, I really appreciate you coming on the show. I think we're going to wrap things up, I suppose, right, Stephen?
Yeah, just about. We had a good solid hour, 20 minutes. It was a great conversation.
Perfect. Yeah, and thank you. It was really great information, and we want to have you back on periodically.
Definitely.
We really need to grasp onto this this healing. I mean, we need to be healed, and we can walk as perfect as we want to. I think it's great. And it's energy, and it's we need it.
Awesome.
It's good having you, man. Good having you, Michael.
Yeah,
Is it pronounced Michael?
Both of you too.
And all of the links to Michael's website is in the description of the video. So make sure you go there. Also on YouTube, News for Us World YouTube channel. You can key that in and make sure you subscribe. The links, there's a lot of links in our description. So sorry about that, but we got a lot of stuff going on. And what else is there? The Rumble channel at infowindnewnews, please. And we'll be sharing this out to LinkedIn and all kinds of different places. And we really appreciate, Michael, and what you're doing.
Yes.
So hopefully people will take advantage of it and maybe give you a shout.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, so folks, make sure to check out the Heatherly Warriors Facebook page, follow it, and support our Sunday night shows, facebook.com/Heatherly Warriors, HeatherlyWarriors. If you want to be a guest, or if you want to become a podcaster, newsfeeder, or other technical help, please email us at info@woodwindmg.com. We mentor and produce, distribute, and publish podcasts. Support us through PayPal, Cash App, or by visiting our Heatherly Warriors Bonfire store. All the links are in the descriptions. Freedom of speech is one of the most fundamental parts of a modern democratic society. Without the freedom of expression, we are basically slaves. Please join this informational and educational media outreach today. Good night, everybody. What a great show. Until next time.
Thanks again, everybody.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
All right. Good night, everybody. We hope you enjoyed the show.
Thank you so much.